Hi everyone, welcome to the afternoon session and evening session for UK, where we are joined with Mike Minchinton. He's gonna run us through a 5-hour marathon or maybe less. We'll see how long we will last. So he will show us the Android app for the COVID in the UK, and we will try to find vulnerabilities in that together. So first things first, the session is being recorded and will be available afterwards on YouTube and our site and social media. We will be promoting it. And I want to welcome you to the Open Security Summit training session. So this week and next week we are having a good number of sessions on training sessions, and there are new ones getting added almost every day. So do check back on the Hey Summit page to see if there's any more topics you want to get involved with. So this is a very open environment. We have experts training us, but it doesn't mean that we cannot challenge them. Nobody knows everything, so we all have valuable opinions. So we want you to voice them. So don't be afraid to unmute yourself during the session and ask questions. Or in this specific session, the chat window will be more appropriate. I will be monitoring chat and will make Mike aware if there's a question, and I will voice the questions that you ask. So we respect you, and we expect you respect Mike as well. He has spent his hours for you, and he's going to be spending his five hours of his life to have this experience with you. So openness we have talked about, everything will be shared. There's no secrets here. If we happen to find real vulnerabilities, we might delay the publishing of this specific recording, just so you know. And yeah, if you're not on our Slack yet, please do join. I will post the invitation on Slack, on the chat window right now. And yeah, our hashtag is OSS2020. Be generous with it, share your experience, what you think about it. And over to you, Mike.
Hello. Hope you can hear me okay. Had a few technical difficulties. Firstly, I won't be able to show any real Android devices because if I point the webcam at them, you just see a white screen. So we'll have to make do with using a VM instead. But you will see that the app has checks in it to obviously not run inside a VM. But at least we can get to see the app anyway, and certainly try out some tools against it. This is my first time using Zoom as well, so I'm just trying to work out how exactly to use it. So let me just share my screen.
You do look like a hacker using the Zoom for the first time, so oh good.
Sorry, just bear with us.
So is the NHS app are we gonna look at today?
Yeah, but I just want to go over really some of the sort of tricks to sort of look into an app. So hopefully you can take the information away and look at some of the other apps that are out there. I won't be releasing any O-Day in the apps. I believe, yeah, there's certainly issues there, and you know they have been highlighted by NCSC. So we will be talking over them as such, but yeah.
If we happen to find anything, we would do a responsible disclosure.
Sorry about this. I'm just.
Don't worry.
Work out how to hook it all up.
I can pause the recording if you need time.
Yeah, sorry, if you could just pause it for a few minutes. What you do? Hello, welcome back. So we've got the presentation running. Just a bit of an intro about myself. I've been tinkering around with technology ever since a young teenager, really. I mainly test web applications and sort of infrastructure. I have tested a few Android apps. My skills are a bit rusty, but I've dusted off, and hopefully I can give you some tips on how to look at other Android apps. Yeah, we've run into a few technical problems already. I was hoping to show you some examples on some real devices, and that's not going to work. I had hoped as well to have a Bluetooth sniffer, but my friend is not very well, so that's not going to happen as well. But we could talk a lot about the technologies in use and some of their problems, but also some of the tools that are out there to help us inspect the applications a bit more. So just a disclaimer, I'm not a doctor. I'm certainly not an Android developer. So please don't take any of my advice as medical advice. I will be talking conspiracies. I think it's good to think like that, to be able to think of sort of the worst case scenarios, because by thinking of the worst case scenarios, it helps us to protect ourselves against them when developing software anyway. Yeah, I certainly wish the dev team all the best in this. It's not an easy subject. It's always difficult trying to please everyone. So yeah, I'm not trying to say their work sucks or anything. It's a very difficult task to do. So yeah, I wish them the best. So just to break down what we're going to be going over today, I'm going to waffle on for a bit. Just going to talk about some different subjects like project lifespans, but also health versus security, because, well, that's what it's really coming down to. What do we want from this app, really? Talk a bit about Bluetooth Lite or BLE. Some of the infrastructure that's made up of the NHS app. I know other people have sort of talked about that, but I just want to touch on that a bit. And also just going over the sort of Android structure and versioning. But why I'm going to be talking, if you do want to join in, I would recommend downloading Android Studio. This allows you, it's open source, it's free. This does allow you to write your own Android apps if you wanted to, but for the benefit of us, it will allow us to run an Android virtual machine. So we can run lots of different devices on our own PCs without having to have a real device. We won't get full functionality out of the NHS app. only because they do have checks in place. They will show you a screen just to say, this app is not meant for your device if you try run it in a VM. But ultimately, we're still running their code, and we can still use some of the tools to probe and see what's going on. I've got a few exercises lined out for today as well. Some of you might be surprised to see open source intelligence there. I always find, for me, when I'm on a test, to put that time in up front, kind of get a feel for things like job adverts. Also see if I can then sort of extract a list of developer names. Then that can lead you sort of LinkedIn, and you can then sort of work out roughly in total how many years of developer experience the team has. Obviously, the more experience, I would like to say, the better the app. But it's not always the case. But also, with what we're trying to achieve here, there's been a lot of talk on the internet. A lot of people have been looking at the apps already. So we'd be foolish, really, to not take that on board. But yeah, normally when I do any sort of testing, it's important to do a bit of research up front, see what we can work out, because as we'll go further into the app and how it's made up, all this information that we're gaining from doing these sort of medium to advanced things, we'll probably retrieve from the open source intelligence part. So yeah, it's just a case of, well, as I say, I always find it's good to just do a bit of research beforehand, and yeah, we'll see what we can pull apart. I did hear as well that, and I believe it's been fixed now, but there was, I think it was an S3 bucket that was open, and they had some official sensitive documents on there. I believe that's now been closed, but yeah, that's one of the things we might see in the open source intelligence part if we're looking for any sort of cloud storage. And then from there, we're going to look at some of the basics of working with Android. We'll be looking over ADB, which ultimately is our control from the PC over the real Android device or even the virtual machine. And from that, we can do things like install packages, look at logs, and also get shell access onto the Android device so we can poke around on the command line. Then we'll be looking over at some static checks and some of the tools. And then we'll just take that further by running some Droser, some MobSF, and we'll be doing that on the laptop against the device.
So we do already have a question, but I do not really know what it is about. It's SLM and calls.
Oh, I was wondering about SEM and calls on the Android Studio. Like if there's a SEM, that virtual SEM, and if you could make calls through it.
I don't know about that. I get what you're trying to say. But ideally, if you're doing Android testing, you really should have a physical device to do it on.
That makes sense. I was thinking in terms of sock puppets, as you mentioned, OSINT.
But yeah, just throughout this sort of exercises, I'm probably going to have to stick to Android Studio just to be able to show it on the screen. because yeah, it's not really coming out clear when I put the camera on the devices.
So
I wouldn't worry about installing MobSF or Appium, because we can use some Docker and some other technologies to easily have this run for us, so you don't have to worry about dependencies and pull your hair out.
So tonight, or in this session, we will have a few breaks because it is quite a long one, and nobody is a superhuman to have that kind of energy and focus. So
Sure, sorry, I haven't put the breaks on here,
yeah.
but after every part, we'll probably do a little 10-minute break.
So in the participant window, there are options to ask for a break. So I will be monitoring them as well. If you feel like we need a break, just let me know.
I'm a smoker, so the more breaks, the better. But otherwise, I just try to keep it down to sort of every hour.
Okay. And in one of the breaks, Mike, you might want to try this SCR copy tool, which was the one that Jay used on the Monday session to duplicate his Android screen to his laptop.
Okay.
I don't know if it will work for your setup. I have no idea, but just an option.
Yeah, it's not a tool I've heard of before, but as I say, I'm not primarily an Android developer. My skills are more with web, but I have looked at mobile apps in the past. And then the last bit would be looking at repackaging an APK. Currently, I've got issues with it. Something's failing when I'm repackaging an app, but hopefully we can work out what the problem is later. I think it's just another dependency problem, but I'm hoping by using a different environment that will fix the problem. So that's it really with the slides. I'm just going to talk a bit. But as I say, during this time, it is best to download Android Studio if you want to join in. I do have the copy of the APK that I'll be able to give out when we start probing the application. But for now, I'm just going to talk over some of the subjects and some of my conspiracies, some of my thoughts, some of my concerns. Yeah, it is interesting though, from a sort of hacker perspective. I don't see this as being a good idea going forward. But as a human being, I do see the benefits of having that app installed. So it's quite interesting how I've come to that conclusion, but hopefully with my rants, you'd be the same afterwards. So really, this application is no different from other applications. There's a development team. There's a company that's running this project. There's people involved. And what normally happens when someone creates an app is the ideas and thoughts behind the app may change from the first release to their, say, 200th release. It may be a completely different application by that point. And as with applications, you have different you'll have different releases. So even if you had everyone with good intentions at the start, that may not be the way it then ends up as. over time, different people will leave, other people may join, you know, and even the idea of where the application is going may change down the release path. And we can see that as well with some of the technologies. It's scope creep. So a lot of these contact tracing apps, they're using Bluetooth, but they use BLE, which is I call light Bluetooth, really. If I was trying to make a comparison, I'd say it's the same comparison as Java and JavaScript. JavaScript has nothing to do with Java, just as BLE doesn't have much to do with Bluetooth. A lot of the features, as I see it, were taken out. And rightly so as well. I did have a device which was the BBC Electron board that they bought out, which also has BLE on it. But because of the storage on the device, you don't have the capacity for a full Bluetooth stack. And also, it drains a lot of power. So someone come up with this great idea. Let's create this thing called BLE, and then we can use it on these low power devices. It won't take up more storage. And because it's low power, any data we send via it isn't going to go over large distances, because it just doesn't have the power. The further it gets, the signal will fade and fade. But it's worth stating that their original idea was they wanted something, they didn't need distance, you know, they gave that up because, yeah, for them, they just wanted low power consumption, really. And obviously they wanted people being close to the devices rather than, you know, try set up long distance. But I think the spec now is like BLE version 5. You have mobile phones which can do long distance. I think it's like 1,000 meters. So just going back to that project life cycle, you know, it may start with version 1 as one idea, but when you get to version 5, maybe your ideas have shifted. You know, as I say, BLE version 5, we've now got this long distance. So I do wonder how some of the apps will manage with these different devices that can do long distance. Also, one of the things that the app bases, well, it does some sums to work out how close you are from Bob. But the problem with that is it's working on the signal strength level. And in my experience, that I always get different results across different devices and different chipsets. Some aren't great at reporting that and get it wrong. So yeah, it's not an exact science. Well, it is, but people implement it differently within the chipsets that are handling the communications. So yeah, that's where it can be problematic. And in the early days, you would see this with like Kismet. You use one Wi-Fi adapter and you've got different levels than if you used a different adapter. So as I say, the more the project evolves, so might be the original thoughts behind it. But another sort of moan about this technology would be, when I was younger, with Windows, for example, you could turn it off so it wouldn't send diagnostics information back to the mothership. You can turn off the telemetry. So, yeah, it wouldn't be knocking away at you. But nowadays, it's common for our operating systems to send data back. And even within Windows, I'm not a big Windows fan, but even now with modern Windows, that's really difficult to stop that data being sent back to the mothership. It's kind of like baked into the operating systems now. And it's very difficult to turn off. And sometimes you can't turn it all off. So what I'm trying to get at is, our operating systems in the mobile phones now have APIs for this contact tracing. And I don't see that as a feature that will be going away anytime soon, even if the virus goes tomorrow, because I kind of feel once a feature ends up in the operating system, yeah, that rarely goes away again. So that makes me feel uncomfortable. But at the same time, this has the potential to help the human race. So it would be worth installing the app in that sense. In China, I think, they've got apps as well. They've got a traffic light app. So if you're out on the streets, you have to pull out your phone to show them, to make sure you haven't got a red traffic light, which is a stay at home, don't leave sort of thing. You know, I could kind of see something like that perhaps being introduced as an additional feature later on into this app. Because going back, yeah, there's a whole project team behind this. They're working at this and they're going forward with this, but I don't think that will ever stop. But that's my conspiracies. Just want to sort of touch on as well about health versus security. Now, previously I tested an Android app and website, and that was around mental health. And it wasn't until I'd done this testing that I kind of saw things in a different way, because the app had common vulnerabilities like other apps, but they weren't so much, I never classed them as the same sort of issue rating, classed them a bit lower. For one example, password policy. Had no password policy. You know, you could enter password, you could enter 3 ones if you really wanted to, or 555, and the application would let you in. Now, on most pen tests, that would normally be identified and raised, and maybe that'd be like a medium sort of issue to fix. But in this instance, what the app was giving you help to get over your mental health difficulties. Now, I would imagine if someone is going through troubles like that, they might, you know, they could have some sort of problem where they must enter 222 as all their passwords, you know, or otherwise thunder's going to come from the sky and strike them down. So by that mental health company implementing the password policy, going to have more of a negative effect towards the users. So yeah, actually sort of downgraded it as a low, and they were looking at the issue to fix it, but I turned around to them and said, really, at the end of the day, you should just accept these issues, because, okay, it's bad for security, but the getting someone the help they need during difficult times is probably more important than the actual security. Because, you know, if they can't set their password as 222, maybe they won't use the app, maybe they won't sign up for it, install it, and they'll never be able to get that help that they need, so they can come up with some great passwords for the future. So yeah, you know, there is a sort of compromise when it comes to our health versus security. As I said just before this started, you know, something happened to you and you called up 999 and you wanted some assistance, potentially your details could be going out over the air to an ambulance crew somewhere, or the police, or the fire brigade. Maybe they're in a coffee shop. Potentially someone could hear those details and hear, you know, there's a 40-year-old male that's unconscious sitting behind the door of 41 Fred Street. Yeah, I'd rather I get that emergency assistance as soon as possible than having to then enter codes or go somewhere more secure so they can then listen to the messages, because that's all going to add time. And when you need emergency assistance, you know, time is of the essence, really. So with this app, it doesn't really protect the user that installs it, because if I'm out and about and then I get a notification on the NHS app that I may have been in contact with someone, go home, you know, self-isolate. That doesn't really help me, because I may have already, you know, got the virus. But where it does help is I'm no longer going to be going out and about, and that can help stop the spread and help stop other people from getting the viruses. That's where it helps, really. As the user of the app, I guess you could argue, yes, it is helping you if other people are getting those alerts and staying in. But yeah, I'm never going to be notified that I may have come in contact with someone who was actually at home. Yeah, sorry, I'm going off on a tangent then. But yeah, when it comes to our health, I'd rather have the help than have the security. And people are talking about, you know, oh, but what about people being able to track people or trace people or things like this? It's in the name. It's called track and trace for a reason. It'd be pretty rubbish if they couldn't track you and couldn't trace you. And we'll be looking at one of the documents released from NCSC about the application, and you know, they even mention some sort of areas of concern, but they also have this sort of back-end system. I think they say from someone saying they're not feeling well, the minimum will be a 4-hour wait before someone gets that notification. And I guess that's because it's got to go off on the back-end server, work out all the different IDs, and then send the notifications out, which can be quite a long task, really, because you have different IDs each day, which has to match up to. So there's a lot of stuff going on in the back end. And just talking about some of the infrastructure, this is just around the NHS App. They use a component called Firebase, which is now part of Google. There's some cloud technology there, and I imagine they're also running some of their own internal infrastructure. But that's 3 different components, all carrying sensitive data, and all managed and run by other people pretty much. You know, if I worked for NHSX, I've got no control over who are the admins for Firebase, who are the engineers for that company, what's the process they have to go through. I imagine, yes, they do put lots of checks in place, but you do hear stories of people working for these cloud companies like AWS who are in these positions of power. You know, they have access to a lot of interesting stuff, and there are cases where they are blackmailed and they do give out data or access, all completely illegal, but and that can happen inside your own organization as well. But all I'm saying, there's 3 different areas that can happen. I'm kind of old school, I'd rather it just be the one. It gives me more control over it. But at the same time, by using other technologies like Firebase, you know, Firebase offers support for Android apps to do a lot of the basic stuff. So you're not having to roll your own technology. But what does concern me is, yeah, Firebase is owned by Google. You know, a couple of years ago, you may have heard of the Google DeepMind project. As far as I was concerned, that project, well, version 1, was brought about because ultimately they wanted to track pandemics around the world. So that's why they needed access to the hospital data, but not only that, they got access to A&E reception data, which was the first ever private company to get access to that. I believe they got told off about it since then, but as far as I'm aware, that system's still running in the background somewhere. And if I was running that system, why wouldn't you want to get access to that Firebase data? So, yeah.
We do have a question in
Yep.
chat. What kind of evidence do we have that our information isn't just being used for product improvement? It would be quite hard to evidence that. There are rules and regulations, but...
Sure, but normally when people break the rules and regulations, they don't advertise that. They say they stick to the rules and regulations, and then, you know, we find out some other way that they haven't. But they could be using the data for a lot of things. Yeah, and that's what I don't like. And that's why I kind of compare it to, you know, the Windows of today, where it's sending data back to Microsoft, you know, and trying to disable that. We won't be able to disable this in future releases of the app or Android or iOS. That's my own thoughts. You know, it's going to be baked in, and yeah, it's not going to be something that you can easily turn off. But we kind of live with that now, you know. I've never looked, but I would imagine a Nintendo Switch is sending tons of data back because it can. And hell, the more data you got, the more products that you can give out and this and that. So it is a bit of a data war. But how do you know anyone's not abusing your data? You don't until it's done. The only way to protect from that is not giving you data. But as I say, I would install this app and run this within the UK. You know, I think it's the good ethical thing to do, and you know, bring, you know, it's better for mankind. But yeah, as a hacker, I don't like it being introduced into our technology, and I can see that APIs being misused later on down the line, even though they tell you they won't be misusing it. But and if they do misuse it, then they'll just say sorry. You know, oh, we didn't realise that was happening. We sacked the guy that was doing it because we never really told him in private to do that. But you know, yeah, we've sacked the guy. He was a naughty person. Won't happen again. It's rubbish. With the Facebook dump, well, with the analytics company, they said they deleted that data. They didn't, because they carried on using it and carried on giving it to other people. And yeah, they probably then turn around and say, oh, we thought we deleted it, but it turns out such and such didn't delete it, so we sacked him. But yeah. But that's my conspiracies over with for now. And just touch more on some Android stuff before we stop for a 10-minute break. But if you don't know anything about Android, and I actually found this out the other day, but yeah, the code names are A to Z. So obviously Kit Kat is older than Lollipop. But as I say, it was only the other day I discovered this, and I was quite surprised. I hadn't learned that sooner. So yeah, different versions of Android have their own problems. But when you have an Android app, you can specify what the minimum version is and what the maximum version is. Most people, they keep the minimum low, maximum high, so their app will run on most of the devices. But the trouble is with that, if you're then letting your app run on like the older devices, the older Android, they can have their own problems in it, which could then affect your app security. But then at the same time, if you then make your app so it's only running on the latest devices, well, 80% of your user base could be on an old device. So yeah, most of the time I do see it there's a lot of range between them. So obviously they can sort of get that marketplace. But yeah, I'm just going to stop it there for 10 minutes, just let. This meeting is being recorded. So right now, can you see my browser?
No, we see the agenda slide.
Right, give us a few minutes, sorry.
It's okay.
How about now?
Yes.
So yeah, I'd say just want to touch on some of the open source intelligence, which is really just Google searching around. So yeah, straight off the bat, really, there's items there that, well, let's have a little look. To be honest, I've not done this yet just because I wanted to sort of go over it in this session. So I am kind of going to skim over.
So we're going to be seeing how a hacker or someone who's looking for a vulnerability, where do they start? How do they do it? Live.
Well, just to add to that, if you as a pen tester or doing bug bounties, it doesn't really matter as much. But I guess I've just come from the old school way where you would sort of gain as much information about your target. Maybe you'd replicate this similar sort of software or architecture they're running. You do this locally. So if they were running WordPress, you'd run a WordPress site yourself. And you could then do your testing locally, because then that first time you're initializing network communications to their servers, you're already firing off attacks. You're not learning, you've already done that part. So you're punching from the first step, really. But as I say, you don't really need to do that if you're a pen tester or bug bounties, because you're allowed to, really. But actually, sorry, that isn't exactly true, because some sites will still have security measures to make sure that you're not sending so many requests a minute. So I guess if you was only restricted to sending 100 requests a day, then you'd really want to make sure pretty much 98% of those requests are going to be attack payloads, rather than just trying to work it out.
So every site's terms and conditions or terms of use would probably tell you not to do it. But there's the concepts of white hat, black hat, gray hat. So but I'm not an expert in this, but if you have the intention of the greater good, and you're not doing this for your own benefit, but the benefit of the public, then you're in that gray area. So you shouldn't be finding the one, not finding, but you shouldn't be attacking the site, because it's against the terms of use. So you're breaking a contract which you haven't really signed up to, but you're thinking about the greater good of the community.
Well, a lot of the stuff we can do without breaking any sort of terms and conditions and any sort of laws, just by sort of turning our networking off, really.
True. And then it becomes a question of what do you do with that information afterwards.
Yeah, but yeah, I would say always use your skills for good rather than bad. Yeah, so you also just have to you just have to notice some of the wording, because here they say they want to strongly protect your privacy and security, but then in the next line, provide the insights to the public health professionals to better manage the virus. If I was a public health professional, I'd think, stats like people's ages, locations, that's kind of valuable data, really. So just trying to say that ultimately they're going to have the data, and well, they can use it for good, they can use it for bad, but we just kind of have to hope that they use it for good. Because even with the app, with one of the papers we're seeing a bit will actually mention that the app does not sort of give a fingerprint as such, but you're potentially sending a message from that app to their servers from your home IP address. There's all this other sort of data that they potentially can get access to, and I if I was running this project, I'd want to get, access to as much data as possible. But yeah, but when you read their wording, they just say within the app. So it's not really, I'm not really getting the sort of data I was kind of looking for here though. Let's just see. Can we find some job ads?
So what you're doing now, could it be classed as open source recon?
Yeah, yeah. So just what I was looking for.
When I used to do more active training sessions, I usually would Google their company and security, and then I would Google like Etsy or GitHub security, put them side by, and then say which one do you think as an attacker I will attack first.
Yeah. Well, this is it.
The first 10 links are all about how we do security, how we protect you, how we think about this, how we visualize security, or the ones that barely have anything, or or have we're trying to hire.
Yeah, I've just realised I sort of missed out sharing an exercise, but I did sort of want people to sort of join in and see if they can just pick out a couple of developer names, because then the sort of normal lifespan of a developer, even though developers are far from normal, they probably have blog posts, they probably have forum posts, but they've probably also got GitHub as well. So you get to
Stack
see
Overflow. Maybe
and Stack Over. Yeah. So you get to see their code, you get to sort of get an understanding of how they code. Yeah.
We have a question in chat asking, what if we use a Tor exit node to keep our IP address hidden for a while? But Nitesh, when did you ask this? Because for the Google
at the same time,
probably that's not very relevant. But
it's a good point. But the thing is, okay, they haven't then got information on, say, your external IP address. But you sent them your data every time someone's come along. You then sign it and send it back to them. So yeah, they can see your locations because you've been handing that data over to them, so they can do this tracking, right? So even if you wasn't using Tor, if someone wanted to find you, there's still ways. Maybe that route you took that day to the shops is the same route you normally take to the shops. I watched a talk recently and someone was saying all you need is between 15 and 19 other data points to be able to sort of say that's such and such with a bit of confidence. So yeah, all these little bits are giving out information. Firebase itself has a whole sort of analytics library. They can work out device IDs and whatnot. I don't know if this app is making use of that, but it is part of the features of the technology they're using. So that's already there. As I say, I don't know whether they got it on or off, but yeah, there's all these other data points that they can potentially work out. And regardless of all this anyway, so you've used Tor, you haven't been out the house and no one's knocked on you for your location. In the app, you can click that you're not feeling very well. I haven't clicked it because I'm not too sure if it's probably gonna send information off to another server. And I imagine with the Firebase stuff as well, if I've got my networking turned off, that it's probably going to keep it stored offline until the device becomes online again, and then it'll probably send it then. But as far as I'm aware, what happens is you'll have to enter your phone number, because ultimately you're getting contacted by the doctors. So at that point, you've put your phone number in and a doctor calls you up. Well, there goes your ID there, right? All I'm just saying, there's multiple areas that they can get this from. And going back to it all, it's in the name, track and trace. They have other methods of tracking and tracing. This is just an additional one for the managing of COVID. But yeah.
Wally has found a couple of names for the developers and their Twitter handles.
Oh, okay, brilliant.
I suggested for him to share them in Slack rather than here, because we don't want to put any personal details of anyone.
Yeah, I'm just worried if I'm going to join Slack on here, though, it's going to...
That's fine. He's posted here in the chat. Just don't say them out loud.
Yep. Oh, so no looking them up on GitHub then. But as far as I was aware, all their stuff's being... I thought they were storing all their stuff on GitHub anyway. Yeah, as part of the... kind of shocked it's just showing you the OSI, but really you're checking, you know, lots of different places. One of them being GitHub. So there's the website. So yeah. You know, if this was a private app now, we've managed to find where they're storing it on GitHub, and I do see a lot of information being shared on GitHub, especially if you're a developer. Other developers would probably look at you funny if you didn't have your own sort of source control like GitHub, or I'm trying to think of the Microsoft one. My brain's gone blank.
Sort of your portfolio, isn't it?
It is, yeah. So yeah, here we see they've only done 2 commits. But you can see as well, just from the name really, you know, they've probably had 200 other versions before they got to 208. You know, it's software is always constantly being defined and updated. So, you know, say what you start off with might be completely different to what you end up with. Oh, wow. So yeah, straight away, we haven't got to use any of the fancy tools that I will be showing you. Yeah, just a bit of Google searching, and in this case, a bit of GitHub, we can actually see the manifest file for the main Android application. And so from here, we can see all the different permissions that it's requesting. think they've. I'll have to check later on, but it does look like they've removed a permission. Because I swear well, we'll see it later on when we take the application apart. But ultimately, when we're taking the application apart, we're trying to get back to the original code. But yeah, in our case, it's done for us because they've got it all up on GitHub. There's nothing wrong with that, as long as they haven't hard-coded anything. I haven't seen anything hard-coded as yet. Well, I've seen some, but nothing too serious.
One thing to bear in mind, the stuff in source code may not be the same as what's in the application. If you've only seen one submission of the application, it's all probable they're using internal source control, and that's a version that's been pushed at a point in time.
Yeah, also they could be doing it to hide certain things when, they've released, say, the manifest, but the manifest in the app could be a completely different one. So yeah, it's good for us to be able to know how to extract this manually and for us to work out.
I'm sorry, there are 3 different repositories for this as well.
There's probably going to be a lot more as other people sort of look at the app. But also it could be some of their own internal developers, maybe Bob's put the APK on his one because he wants to have a play, and so does John. So John puts it on his one. It's not uncommon to see internal sensitive information up on GitHub. So it's definitely worth a check. Yeah, straight away we can see it's using this Firebase. Let me just show you what that looks like. Firebase. So as I say, with Firebase, they've done a lot of the work for you. So if you're writing apps, you can avoid all that pain. Just by using Firebase. A lot of people do. So I'm not an Android developer, but I would certainly recommend, if you was doing it, to use something like Firebase. But as I say, once again, that's another set of admins you're not in control of. So ultimately, at the end of the day, you can't turn around and say there isn't a risk their admins are going to steal your data. Let's just have a quick look on Showdown as well. I've not looked here yet, but see what pops up. I know this is more sort of infrastructure, but it kind of helps us gauge what sort of technology is in use. Of course, there's going to be false positives, so don't imagine NHSX is running from China. There's no English. And also privacy policies are always good. But they can also lie a lot as well. So yeah, straight away it's saying the app does not collect, store or reveal users' identities, one of them being telephone number. But as I say, from reading the documentation, it does sound like if you do report yourself sick, it will ask you for your telephone number. So yeah. So really you could argue, yeah, they're perhaps not collecting it or storing it. But yeah, if you give your telephone number, it's probably going to end up on a doctor's desk to give you a call.
Mike, are you checking the chat window from time to time?
I'm not, sorry.
Okay. Because it's
There are
not
many
questions, I didn't voice them, but so Wallaby has some findings.
Okay. Yeah. Oh, there we go. Okay. I can see it now. Sorry, just give us a few moments to catch up.
No problem.
So other people are sort of saying about there's other apps, Google and Apple, where privacy is mostly preserved. Yeah, going back to this sort of health and security, I do kind of think we do have to kind of give up on the privacy. Because if you are ill, wouldn't you want your local doctor to know? It's a difficult one. But yeah, just going back to it, although it's in the name, track and trace. So when people are saying, oh, we have 100% privacy, then how are you supposed to track or trace someone with 100% privacy? It just doesn't go together. I don't know if it's just me.
It's not just you. You have to be suspicious about these things, right?
Oh, for sure, yeah.
Mm.
We need suspicious people because, yeah, they can think of attacks that ordinary people can't. Oh, look, yeah, they've got a HackerOne program. I did not know that. Let's have a quick look at that.
For the HackerOne Discord and everything else, you may have to actually be logged in. I'm not sure.
It looks like he's already logged in.
Yeah.
I just ran back in the other room to say that.
Thank you. Collective hacking.
did not know they, sorry, they've got the website in scope for the bug bounty. Okay.
So we should aim some 0 days, maybe.
Well, I think ultimately it's all flawed anyway, just because of the sort of technology it uses. You know, with Bluetooth, that's got its own problems. Things like just jamming. You know, I'm guessing if you had a shopping centre, you wouldn't want loads of people to get reports of coming in contact with people if the only place they've been is your shopping centre. So you might want to run a jammer while people are visiting. So, you know, no one's going to say, oh, you know, John, he's staying at home because he's only been out to the shopping centre and, you know, got a notification to stay at home. So I do wonder if companies will, make use of jamming technology, which is fully illegal, but it'd be interesting. I would imagine one or two would, just so they don't get the bad publicity of people coming in contact with potential COVID people in their stores. Oh, that's interesting. Thanks for putting the bounty up, though. Certainly give that a look. You know, also the app, just, you know, when you're testing applications, you haven't just got the vulnerabilities of the device and operating system. You've got like business logic bugs as well. So I do sort of wonder how they would deal with issues such as, say I was a window cleaner in my area and I wanted to make all the other window cleaners stay at home. Surely I could just follow closely to them and then report myself as being ill later on. And yeah, if everything works, they should then get a notification to say, you know, self-isolate for another 2 weeks, which means while the window cleaners are indoors self-isolating, I can go around and steal their customers. So I don't know how they're going to get away with issues like that, to be honest.
And keep a burner for that.
Well, with the app, it makes use of a install ID, which changes every time you install the app. So what if you just uninstalled the app and reinstalled it? Would they think you're someone else? This is where I kind of mean that with the other data points, are they matching them up just to see, are there people out there creating lots of different install IDs for the same device? Because potentially, you could follow someone and then say you're ill to sort of force them to self-isolate. And then you could change your ID, right, and do it again and again and again. But I do wonder, are they tracking that on the server side? But it's certainly a hard task to do. So that was a very brief bit on OSI, but there is one thing I just want to show you. Yeah, if you haven't read the article, I definitely recommend it. Why we have the next break, written by the technical director for NCSC, and it's all about the security of the app, the concerns they have, and some of the ways they hope to get around it. They do obviously understand that there's going to be malicious people. So yeah, when they self-diagnose, that's it, where it's then sending all your records of other people's Bluetooth beacons that you've picked up. But then actually just looking over this, seems like you will be notified to release yourself from self-isolation if a contact seems not to have the infection. But yeah, I think most of that is happening as a sort of manual event by a human in the background. Yeah, so, you know, with their sort of security concerns, they wanted as little personal data to be collected, but that's, as I say, it's really difficult to do, especially because there's all these other sort of areas collecting data. You know, there's the issue of being, you know, you should not be able to track users of the app over time. But from listening to the talk from the previous people, that's a load of old rubbish. Because it seems like you have a unique ID per day. So if I was outside your house in the morning when you left, I'd be able to see your ID for that day. So even though your Bluetooth MAC address might be changing, if you're lucky enough for your phone to support that, then you know, they can still track you because they would have picked up your ID earlier in the morning. But then you also do have the problem of, well, if I see one Bluetooth device and the only person next to me is Alice, that's probably Alice's device. So if you can do it with just one person, I think the more people you add to it, it's also possible there, because, you know, when it comes down to it, you can just do it to one. So yeah. Because also going back to the privacy stuff as well, is if I've been indoors and I only see Alice, I see her once, and I still stay indoors and I see no one else, if I then get a notification, well, I can pretty much assume that it was probably Alice that's not feeling too well. So yeah, that's always going to be hard to protect from. All I'm just saying, because you've got these leakages there, it's just going to be more of a problem later on. So yeah, they've also got in that the system must be tolerant of like a single user trying to gained from a false self-diagnosis. We don't know if it is tolerant. They're just saying it must be. Obviously, an authorized tester, pen tester, would be able to work out if that was true. I thought this was interesting. A malicious user trying to cause mass notification by walking around a hospital and then diagnosing themselves later on as with the illness. These are very hard things to work out to protect against, really.
That's probably why they said that if the person hasn't caused additional infections already, then yours can be, you can be requested to be removed from self-isolation previously in the paper.
Yeah, but I kind of think if you did have some automated technology, you wouldn't be doing it as one user. You'd potentially be doing this as 10, 20 other users. Yeah. And I do wonder as well with like the Bluetooth stuff and, some of the long range devices and whatnot, and even just sort of some custom hardware hacks, you've got the Bluetooth sniper. Could you potentially then use this technology to make it appear that you're quite close to a person when really you're a couple of 100 meters away, maybe in a helicopter. So yeah, it's certainly a good paper to go over because they've certainly thought of some of the things. Yeah, and they do talk about perhaps they move over to GUIDs in the future. Yeah, best effort software only protection is used, which they're talking about the bouncy castle stuff, which is the random library that's used in bouncy castle is cryptographically insecure. So yeah, secure random is the secure alternative. But I'm not going to go over this paper too much, but I would certainly suggest giving it a read because it certainly contains a lot of information. This is just some of the stuff the Bluetooth sending out. Because ultimately you're sending your key for the day, the person signs that and sends that off with your RSSI, which is how strong the signal was. But yeah, just in my history though, different chips return different RSSI values, even though you could be the same distance apart. So not too sure how they take that on board. But sorry, let me just have a quick look over at chat and then we'll start on some ADB stuff just to get the workshop session started.
Okay, are we gonna give a break now or later?
We could take a quick break now. Finish off my cigarette.
What do you guys think? I have one yes. Another one. Another one.
Yeah.
Okay. let's take.
We just take a 10-minute break. Is that all right?
Yeah.
And start on some of the sort of workshop stuff to start showing.
Welcome back.
Okay. Thanks. We're just over this session going to get a bit more hands-on. Going to be using Android Studio to show you on a virtual Android device. Just some of the basic tools to get files from and to the device, and how can we get this APK really, this application, because when you're testing Android software, it can come in many forms. Maybe the developers were kind enough to share a version with you which has some of their security checks turned off, because if you were sort of pen testing the app, you might want to see what can be done if attacker was able to circumvent some of the technology. So that's why they'd turn some of that off. Most of the times you're probably gonna have to get it from the Play Store, and then to get it from the Play Store you'd need to have access obviously to the Play Store, which you won't be able to get if you're using some unofficial devices. For example, I've got Lineage OS installed on a Raspberry Pi, which helps me pretend to be a fake Android device, but I won't be able to install Google services on it. And because I can't install Google services, then I won't be able to access the Play Store. So really you need a legitimate device, a nice clean device just to get your data from. There are other websites you can use though to download APKs. The problem is with that is you might not get the latest version, so you could potentially miss bugs if you weren't looking at the right version. Also, it could be something else. So yeah, ideally you want to get the app from the original source, either being the customer or directly from the Play Store. But so for our first exercise, which is really, I think, the first step really in any Android testing, is to enable developer mode on the actual Android device. Just give me 2 seconds so I can share Android Studio with you. It's a bit annoying that I can't share the full screen. Hold on. Let's try this way. Can you see Android Studio?
Yes, we can. And it's very, very clear.
Brilliant. So Android Studio lets you create Android apps, but we're just going to be using it mainly for a feature they've got where basically you're running Android virtual machines. So if you've got Android Studio downloaded, if you want to join in you're going to have to, first of all, create a new device. I've already got 3 devices in here, but let's create a new one just to show you the steps you take. But yeah, feel free to join in. So first of all, we have to select our hardware. We've got different categories. Yeah, just going to be focusing on the phones. Gives a bit of detail about the sort of size and resolution they're capable of. So now we've selected the hardware device. We now can choose the version of Android we want to install on it. Let's try Android 7. Now, I'll cancel it and use one of my own devices, but it takes a while just for it to download it all. But yeah, if you just let this finish and then click finish, you'll have a nice shiny new device that you can use. I've just cancelled out of it now because I've already got 3 devices set up and configured. But yeah, if you do need to go about creating a new device, that's the way. I always try to go for the sort of lower end of the Android versions. So yeah, here would be a Nougat. But the apps themselves can have the minimum level, maximum level, so they might not allow it to run on a Android 7.0, but they might allow it for 8 plus. But yeah, I always start off on a lower down one, only because they have more vulnerabilities publicly disclosed, I'd say. It's easier to sort of get the application under test using a older Android than a newer one, because with the newer versions they've got a lot more additional security baked into it. So by going with an older version, you can sometimes sidestep some of the security elements. But we've got one here now. It does show up as having Play Store because when you first start the device, as default, it's as if you was starting a new device from the shops. You've got the welcome screen where you then have to go through and sign up, and then that ultimately gives you access to the Play Store once you've done all that. So on this VM I have. So let's start it up. Can you see a phone on your screen?
Yep.
Good.
Loading state.
Yeah, it's just trying to restore it. Now my computer goes to a halt.
Okay, I have muted everyone.
Yeah, so I'm just going to have to close my KVM because It's already started slow. I did want to do this with some physical devices, but it's not going to happen. Just because I can't show them without it just being a screen of light.
Yeah, Mike, are you still there?
Yeah, Mike is also there, I think, but he needed to restart, I think, something. I've unmuted you now, Mike. There was some strange noise, so I muted everyone. Okay, he's saying he's just fixing the memory issue. It's gonna be a few minutes. You guys can go grab a drink, refreshment, snacks. Welcome back.
Thank you all.
You can share your screen.
Just give us a few moments. Hopefully you should see me in Android Studio.
Yep.
Did you hear me talk about the Avd Manager, or shall I just go over that again?
I think it will be better if a quick run through would be.
Alrighty. So yeah, with Android Studio, we can use it to build Android apps, but it also has a feature where we can run Android virtual machines. I've already got 3 set up here because I've already done this, but if this is your first time running Android Studio, you're gonna need to set one of these up. So just under the tools, Avd Manager, create new virtual device. And then, yeah, we just have a list of all different devices we can emulate. We can also do TVs as well, which is quite cool. not tried an Android TV VM, but I might have to do that at some point. So yeah, you pick your device that you want, you know, and then after that you're presented with the different versions of Android you can download. I'd normally stick with the lower ones and maybe work my way up, because an app might have in its Android manifest that it's only going to be running on, say, Android 8 or above. But yeah, just to get started, I would start off with the lower version of Android and work up. The lower versions of Androids have more sort of features where they're sort of taken away in later versions of Android. But they can help you, things like setting up a proxy for network communications. But there's always ways around it. But yeah, I just find using a lower version of Android, I've got potential ways I can bypass certain security aspects that the app may be trying to make use of. Yeah, so just give it a go, really. So let me just show you what happens though. So here I am downloading it. This will take a bit of time. Once this is finished, you can click finish and start your new device. I'm just going to cancel out of this because I've already got 3 devices set up here.
Is there a suggested hardware setup to use for the time being? Is a question here.
No, just really give it a play, because as I say, that you've got all different devices there. I think after this, I might have a little look at some of the TV VMs because I've not seen that before. But yeah, just have a play.
Racing TVs.
Ideally, though, you should really be running it on your own devices.
I'm just doing it this way because I can't show you your devices.
Sorry, I had to mute you again because it happened again. Your computer might be crashing soon because last time this happened, it crashed. Mike, if you are talking, we're not hearing you because I muted you. So I'm gonna give it a go and unmute you.
Hello?
Okay, this is better, a bit better.
So hopefully you should see a phone VM on the screens.
Voice level is a lot higher than usual, but I think everyone can volume down their own machines a little bit to make it to a normal level. Are you talking, Mike?
I'm sorry, I was just looking at the settings. I'll just mute myself, but the exercise at the moment is just to get Android debugger, Android developer mode enabled.
It actually sounds perfect at the moment.
Yeah, it's good.
So yeah, you notice in our menu, we don't have an item for developer mode yet. So I'm just going to enable that now.
So you literally click that 10 times.
Yeah, if you click on the build label 10 times, we'll have the developer mode enabled now.
Wow.
Is it like that on the actual phone as well? Or is
All
it because
depends.
it's virtual?
It all depends. Oh, so yeah, on all Android phones, if you go under About Settings and click on the Build label 10 times, you'll get the developer options show up. Now, different versions of Android put it in different places, but it's going to be either under System or under the main menu. But here we can see developer options, which we just dive into now, but we have developer mode enabled. So just to point out, we want USB debugging enabled because that will enable us to speak from our PC to the phone so we can install software and take software. But another interesting point though of the developer options is we can actually fake our location. So if we were trying to attack someone using like a Bluetooth sniper, then potentially we can fake our location so the app won't know any different. And then all we have to fake is our RSSI levels, which I think is doable by putting more power into it. But I'm not a hardware expert, but I believe just with those two features, you could cause a bit of trouble. So now we've got the developer options enabled. I'm going to drop into some ADB, which is a command line tool, which we can use to gain shell access on the phone. But what I'm going to do is install the app via the Play Store, and then I'm going to use ADB to pull off the actual package, the APK file, so we can run that through some other tools.
I noticed that you had a set of these in front of you. Are you going to go back over these again, or would you like to? Would it be possible to get the like a link to that so we can all run over it too?
Sorry, could you repeat your question?
Yeah, there was a list that you had. Like the step one was to click 10 times on the thing. Like you had a list that was up on the screen at one point. I was just wondering if it was possible to put that down into the chat so maybe those of us that might not be exactly where you are at the moment can follow along,
Sure.
catch up a bit. Oh, I didn't realize it was going to take it manually doing it.
So you're going to need, I believe it's ADB tools. Actually, I believe ADB tools gets installed with Android Studio. Or maybe online, hold on. Yeah, it comes with the Android SDK, which will be installed as part of Android Studio. So you should be able to now run ADB devices. I've got 2 devices plugged in at the moment. This is obviously our fake VM, but this is actually a real device. Let me just unplug that. Yeah, so we just got the 1 device now. But all we're going to, I guess now would be a good time to talk about the pre-flight checks. So it's good to double check what we have is what we was expecting. And I only say that because, hopefully the customer has sent you the APK, or, you've got it from the Play Store. But I've had circumstances before where the customer has sent over the APK, but really all that is just a fake application. And when you run it, it will check to make sure that your system is okay, perhaps that you're not on a rooted device, and everything's kosher. And then once those checks are passed, it will actually download the real APK and install that. So yeah, once you've got that APK, put it on an Android device and just run it. Just make sure you've got the right application running, because as I say, it could just be a sort of fake app which downloads the real app once you've passed its checks. I've known testers to perform the actual test against those loader APKs, and the customers aren't happy when they get their reports back because it wasn't their app. It was just an app that loads their app. So yeah, just double check that APK is the actual application before running any tests on the APK. So let's just do that now. Sorry, for some odd reason, it's not showing up on the Play Store for me. I believe that's because this device doesn't meet the minimum requirements.
Are you going to try one of the other ones that you have?
Well, that's it. You see, I was going to show this on a real device. But yeah, so I won't be able to show the Play Store, but I will be able to show the application being installed on the device. So I'm just going to take here's one I prepared earlier and move it over rather than downloading it out the Play Store, because I'll have to register. It's going to get all tricky. So yeah, let me just get this app loaded onto a phone and then we go from there. Just give us a few minutes though. Sorry, you might want to stop the recording just while. Okay. So if you do start the app on a virtual machine or a fake Android, you get this message, which I think is the default message, just saying you haven't passed its checks really, so it's not going to let you into any of the internals of the application. Yeah, now we need to pull the APK off the device. So just give me a few moments to work that out. There's many different ways, but yeah. Sorry, just I'm not running on my normal devices, so it might be tricky getting this package off. See, there are normally other things you can do, like ADB backup to get access to it, but this particular application has that disabled in the settings. So I think I'm going to just continue. The point of this process was to pull the APK file off the device. If you've got your own physical device, it's easier because one, you can root them, but two, there's other Android tools you can install from the Play Store to help get the apps off. I don't have the Play Store set up on this device because I wasn't expecting to use a VM. So yeah, I'm just gonna step past this step. but we saw there was an APK up on GitHub. Yeah, there are methods to pull off the APK, but I'm not going to waste my time. I'm just going to move on because we do have the APK which we pulled off from a physical device earlier. So really, when we come to APKs, as I said, they're just a zip file. Now, obviously, if we tried looking at this manifest file now, it's going to be awful because it's still in a different format. But just by unzipping it, we can already see straight away, you know, that it's running Firebase. It does give us bits to work with if you didn't have any tools and you just wanted to have a quick look. You know, sometimes people may also have some files stored. You know, say for example, it was doing any sort of communication stuff and needed any certs or anything. So we could potentially have a little look over the APK, a little light touch, and just try work it out. So yeah, at the moment, you're seeing a bit of gibberish in there because, as I say, it's not in the, still in its sort of compressed format. There are tools we can use to get these back to there. This should really look like an XML document like we saw on GitHub earlier. But now that we've got the APK, as I say, we can just unzip it, have a little look around that way. But I'm just going to show you some tools that we can then sort of send this on to, just to then examine over it a bit more. A good site I always use for checking APK files is Virustotal. They do actually have an Android element to it, so I'm just going to go show those features now. So yeah, just by running that APK through Virustotal, one that can tell us if there's any nasties in it that have been packaged with it. But yeah, it can also give us some Android details as well. So here we can see the permissions that it's requesting, the different activities and services it has. This is all useful data for when we're testing. One of the things it doesn't show here is you normally get if it's made any network connections. I don't think we're seeing that because I think it's passing it through a VM that's causing it to show the screen that, sorry, this app is not made for this device, and hence why it's not then making any further networking calls. But if this was a chatty app and tried speaking home, we would see that come up here. So yeah, it's not full on information, but yeah, it's certainly handy just to get this information quite quickly. I'm surprised it didn't pick up on some additional strings. We're going to run this software, well, we're going to run this APK through some other software which will detect further interesting strings. But yeah, it's handy just to pass the app through it, just to give yourself a sort of quick glance over it. But yeah, what I'm going to suggest actually is we take a break now, just for 10 minutes. And then when we come back, we'll look at some other tools that are more Android specific. I just wanted to start off on a lower level, just to show people, hey, if you don't know anything, at least, upload the APK to Virustotal and unzip it just to have a little look for yourself. But let's just have a break. Let me just make sure I can get this software running on the other devices. So yeah, can we take a 15-minute break just to make sure I've got that all up, because I don't want to have to.
Let's meet at 10 past.
Okay, brilliant.
Thank you.
So now we're just going to up the game a bit, and we're going to run MobSF, which is an application to test Android and iOS applications. You can either test an application statically, or you can test it dynamically on a real device. For this instance, though, we'll just be doing static analysis of the APK file. Oh, I'm just using this Docker Hub, Docker Labs.
Everyone else, close yours so he has some capacity.
But this can also just be done with Docker, which I might have to fall back to actually. No big problem. Just thought it might be easy in using someone else's environment to show it, but give us 2 secs. Sorry, you're just going to have to wait while it just downloads in the background. I'm sharing a local directory with this Docker container just so it can pick up the APK file. So yeah, it's downloaded it all now. It's just going to extract it and start up our container, which will hopefully have MobSF running in it, so we can do it. So yeah, it's got a quite nice, simple interface. I'm just going to upload this file. It will do a scan We'll go over some of the issues it brought out and yeah, just show you some of the features of this. I did this on the lab VM. It was quite quick. Shouldn't take too much longer. And we should see some results. So, yeah, we've got our results back now. Interesting to see it's detected 2 trackers. I imagine that's probably going to be like analytic stuff, but we'll see as we go down. But yeah, you know, I really love MobSF. Does some great work. We've given it an APK. It's brought us back a report. There's even a nice little option to generate a little PDF report from all this. But there's lots of data within here. So here we can see the different components that make up this application. Not all these components exported. Sometimes you don't want to export everything because you might want to keep things internal to yourself. We have the option of looking at some of the Java code. Also, we can see the different permissions it's doing and a bit more information about those permissions if we wasn't too familiar with these things. It's quite common to see dangerous status for anything regarding your location data, but in this instance for this application it'd be pretty rubbish without location data. Yeah. So this was the permission that I didn't see in the other Android manifest, but actually it was there. I thought it had a different name. So now in this part, we can kind of see, here's the different code parts. So we can, look over some of the code manually, but this will pull out different issues as such. But we should be able to see the crypto calling out to Bouncy Castle. There we go. And then it's the Bouncy Castle that's making use of the insecure random number generator, but we should see that in the report further down. And Bouncy Castle is a third-party library. Yeah, this was interesting. They've got a shake listener. I guess this is for something they're going to develop later on. I'm not too sure why you'd want to shake your device to cause it to do an event. So it's saying should really be looked into a bit more. So it also shows us some different issues it's discovered. And this is just statically analyzing what was in the APK. But I just wanted to show you, there is open source stuff out there that can help you on your ways when you're looking over at these apps. Not going to talk so much about the issues that is pulling out. This particular one was mentioned previously, and yeah, it's just to do with the Bouncy Castle.
Mike, are you running this on Docker?
Yeah.
Okay.
Just my local Docker. Let me just put that in the chat if you did want to run it locally, because that site that I tried using was just overwhelmed. But yeah, So that command there will download the Docker container from Open Security / Mob Security Framework. It will bind port 8000 on your local host with port 8000 in the Docker container, because so we can access the website. But once that Docker container started, we can now access it just by going to localhost 8000. But if you was a complete noob, as I say, you can sort of put the APK through MobSF, and that was going to give you a number of issues to sort of go look at. And just for wondering if anyone's wondering, are there any hard-coded secrets then? Nah. Just trying to see what it tried to pick up on though. Yeah, it is going to get things wrong and produce false positives, false negatives. False negatives, false positives. One of the two. So yeah, it's always best just to then throw your eyes over it.
If we did a grep, would you look for a password or something? User ID or admin?
There's lots of different things to look for, but if it was going to be hard-coded, I would imagine it would be up at the top. And I reckon it's probably looking at that and thinking, oh, that might be something. Yeah, it hasn't really given us any line numbers to work with there. But yeah, just having a look over, I can't see any hard-coded credentials. So yeah, it does get things wrong, but all we're really doing is looking at the issues that have sort of come out of it and just investigating a bit more. So yeah, here we go. It's making sure the debugger's not running. In the actual manifest file itself, it turns debug off. And then yeah, it's also got some checks just to check it's not in a VM.
Is that why it showed you that warning when you tried that this?
Yeah, but ultimately, in that scenario, well, the app's already running. Okay, you can't get access to the other functionality because you're like stuck in this section, but the app is running. Other apps I've seen, they will just completely quit. So it's not even like they will then take you to a dialogue to say that it can't run on this device. It would just be like, nope, I'm not opening that, and just exit out. I kind of think it's better to exit out because with some of the other stuff, it may be possible to then, once that app is running and is running, you may be able to access the other components still. So yeah, it's better just to throw them out and close the app rather than to display a warning in my. That's what I think anyway. But yeah, we can see they're doing checks anyway, and that's what's stopping us in the VM. But it's also pulled out some other domain names which Virustotal didn't get to this data. So we can see it is pulling out additional information. I expected to see this in Virustotal. This is one of the hosts that it communicates to. But after I just go through the report, we'll just have another little look at that manifest, because I believe that's where these values are actually specified. It's interesting to see it's got Microsoft stuff in here. Yeah, and I understand the Google stuff because it's using Google backends, but Microsoft stuff's, maybe that's future development that's going to come out. Who knows? There's our Firebase URL. If we was authorized, we could, go test this to make sure this is all locked down. I've had a brief look. It appears to be. Yeah, here we go. Here's the trackers. We care about your privacy. So I don't blame this on the developers of the app, because you get this out the box using some of these third-party tools. So yeah, Firebase, one of the main features it does really well is analytics. So just because it's detected it might not mean it's using it, because it could have just pulled it out in one of the libraries that's attached, but the actual code for the application might not actually call out to that function or to that library. But it's interesting to note that there are analytics in the app, even though they may not be being used.
So we have a question in chat. Can you view where exactly this URL was found? So I think this was asked when we were seeing the Microsoft one, maybe, or Microsoft URL. So in the code, where does it? Yeah. Okay.
So yeah, if it was URLs, which is further up, oh, here we go, build config. We can then inspect this file. Here we go, some nice juicy stuff. And there. So they've hard coded that URL into this build config class. So yeah, we can see where the URLs are coming from. But as we go further down, this is now a different section. So
can we try one of those Microsoft ones from above? It was even above there. Yeah. Yeah. Above. Up.
oh,
In the previous section.
in here,
Yeah, there were some Microsoft ones in there as well. Yeah.
yeah. No, it doesn't show us that. Maybe if we do a search, it will. But yeah, it's obviously pulled this out the app, and yeah, there's a lot of data to go through here. So in this particular section where it's showing you the domains, it's not going to show you where that's coming from. And yeah, the point of this section is to actually then do checks on that domain just to make sure they're good. Yeah, but these are strings that will be within the code or within the application. So to answer your question, this software is deconstructing the APK file and then going through each file. So yeah, we could do the same manually, but obviously, time comes into it. So it took us 5 minutes to see some of this stuff, whereas if we're going through manually, that might add on a few hours or days. So I normally find using tools are helpful because it gives you areas to concentrate in, but you should still also do some manual pokery. So these are the different activities in the application. An activity, I guess, is a screen. So it's got lots of different screens, but it is interesting that they have this one here. Now, currently, the only activity exported is this one. And what it means when something's exported, it means I can then call this activity from other apps. If this was exported, potentially we could then start up the application and go straight into this screen rather than it starting and going into this screen. But yeah, currently the only activity that's exported is the main activity, because all these activities are probably being launched from the main activity. But there are ways of repackaging the app so you can export these, so you can see what these screens are. You can access these screens. Unfortunately, though, that's the bit I'm sort of having difficulty on, because it's been a while since I've used the software to do this, and I'm running into some issues, but I'll show that towards the end anyway, because it is interesting that, yeah, it's even in the debug sort of namespace, so certainly be interesting to be able to access that activity. Now it's just going to show us all the files. So yeah, then that's the end of the MobSF report. As I say, it gives us a nice little PDF report that we can download. But yeah, also, yeah, it's given us some areas to look into. And let me just try see if I can get the manifest file up. Yeah, there we go. So yeah, just as we saw on GitHub, all APKs will have this version. So it kind of is the main configuration file for the app. It's got the different permissions that the app needs. But also, again, I have this, we can see the activities. So yeah, as they don't have exported, they're not exported by default. Let me just show you what that would look like. Yeah, here we go. That's the argument that you'd need to pass to the activity. Well, we'd ideally want to change this manifest and add this line to all the activities. That way we can access those screens without having to go through those workflows.
A tester one. So we could use the tester activity.
Yeah. But as I say, the software I used to do that, just having problems with, but I will show you it at the end.
Cool.
I wanted to just show you the MobSF stuff because it is really a handy tool. They're always making changes to it, and yeah, it can also work for the iOS stuff. So if you have like a Hackintosh, you can run tests on that. Definitely worth, if you've got some time and you're bored, definitely try set up dynamic analysis on a real device or even on a VM. It's kind of fun to do. It's quite a learning curve. But yeah. So now we've just looked at MobSF. Just going to suggest that we take another 10-minute break. And when we come back, we'll look at Droza, which is a tool which is 3 years old now. But
How do you
by
spell it?
using Droza, we can then get more information out of our Android device.
Is it like browser but with a D?
No.
Ah, okay. Oh, secure apps.
Do you know F-Secure?
Yeah.
Oh no, do you know their folks? Sorry. I didn't know if you worked with
Yeah, I
them.
was on a call with them yesterday. They were hosting something, a Zoom call.
Yeah, so it's actually on a MWR Labs GitHub, but MWR got bought out by F-Secure.
Yeah, they
But
bought a few companies. Did they
yeah,
buy a lot of companies?
they bought a company I used to work for, Digital Assurance. And yeah, got consumed into F-Secure. But I've met some of the MWR guys. They've got some real good talent, which doesn't surprise me that they've got a GitHub with this tool. But it is 3 years old. It still works. It still has its benefits. It's still useful. But yeah, I'd like to start seeing more Android testing tools come out, really.
And it's free, is it?
Yep.
Right.
But this Droza gets a bit more complicated because there's an agent that we have to install on the mobile device, and then we've got a console application that we run on our PC. But we can use that to get more information out of the app. Similar to what we've seen, where we can get a list of services or a list of activities, but it's really there that we could then call the other screens if we successfully manage to repackage the Android manifest, which, yeah, we get on towards the end of the session, but then that should really finish us up. I did want to talk a bit some hacking on the Bluetooth side, but I'm going to have to leave that out this time.
That's fine. I think we've done a lot of things already. So 10-minute break.
Yep.
I'm going to pause the recording now.
This meeting is being recorded.
I'm just going to start on the last section, really, and that's just looking over Droza. And I'll leave you with a challenge to see if you can do what I failed to do. And I'll show you the tools that should do the trick. But ultimately, we want to extract the Android manifest from the APK file, add some exported equals true to the activities, and then repackage the APK back up. Yeah, there's a tool to do it. APK tool, I believe, is the one. I've then tried signing it and also just checking the signing's correct. But yeah, it then fails when I try push it on the device. But I'm just going to show you Droza, which is another Android testing tool. It's good at pulling out information, but we could use this tool to potentially then access other parts if we could get them exported. But just for this though, I'm going to start an Android VM, install the Droza agent onto the Android device, and then have it connect back to our command line running on the PC. Sorry, just
touching back on someone in the chat asked about the Microsoft analytics. Now, with an APK,
Sorry, Mike, I muted you. You can, I'm unmuting you now.
so just going over Microsoft Analytics, I don't think any of the code calls out to it. I think
We can, so your voice is distorted. We can't understand. But try again. Sometimes it resolves itself, the problem. If you're talking, we're not hearing because you're on mute. And I'm trying to unmute you. Oh, sorry.
yeah.
Cool.
I think it's the ambient VM that's eating memory, so I'm going to just remain muted, but
Okay.
I'll show you the functionalities of Droser, how we get it set up. Yeah, I'll just be showing you around it, but really with all this, feel free to download and test on your own devices and test against other apps and see what you can find.
Cool. Thank you. We'll be watching.
So yeah, there's just some of the sort of features Droser gives us. I know that was a very, very quick overview. But with that, we can call out to other activities within the Java file, but of course only if they're exported, which at the moment they're not. But it also, it gave us a little attack surface where it showed us what it had exported. Let's try and look at that now. Here we go. So yeah. So what we mean by that is what objects can we call from outside of the application. Really, as I say, we want to get into that manifest, export some of those activities. We want to turn on backup, and we'll probably also want to turn on debugging as well. Obviously, the app may check this, so certain things you might not be able to get away with, but having the other activities exported would be better for us, because we can then really see what's going on and potentially get to other areas of the app that they never intended anyone to get access to, especially that that activity that had dev in its name, or debug. Wouldn't mind getting hold of that application. As I say, I have done it previously. It's a long time since I've used the tools though, so I was pulling my hair out last night trying to work out why I couldn't repackage the app. I got close, but it still wasn't running on the device. So I'm just going to now move on from Droser. I just wanted to sort of show you the setup of putting the agent on the phone, pretty simple, and then having it connect back. So then we can query additional things. As I say, this tool's like 3 years old now. Still pretty handy. But most of the information we already gained from running it through MobSF. But yeah, if we wanted to then poke in further, this is a handy tool to use. So what I'm now just going to move on to is the repackaging part, but obviously I can't show you it working, but I'll show you the steps to take apart the APK, edit it and repackage it. But it's the repackaging that's currently failing. So yeah, I'm just going to run through the steps, but it should be as simple as decompiling it and then rebuilding it. But unfortunately, that's not the case. I have had this working before, but yeah, right now, just having some issues. But we got APK installed. So we can pass it the D to decode. I was playing around with the -R and -S. Yeah. this, I got pretty close using this, because really all I'm trying to do here is I just want, it was not found, it was not readable. Oh. All I was trying to do with this is just change the manifest. I don't really want to be changing the other files. So now see we've got a little directory. And if I cat the Android manifest file, you can see it's an XML document. We can see the text quite clearly. Whereas before, when we just unzipped it and tried viewing this file, it was a bit of a mess. But yeah, part of APK tool, it will decode everything to normal. So yeah, really what I'd like to achieve, and I'll leave this as an exercise for you guys to show me that I suck. But we really need to come in here, and we want to add this onto all the activities and, well, all the services, just by exposing everything, because then we'll be able to access it directly. So yeah, this is the particular activity that I think would be interesting to bring up. See what's on the screen. But you can also kind of gauge as well, just by looking over these, what the application's currently doing. You know, so obviously it's taken in postcode there. When you first start the app, it does ask you for the first part of your postcode, not the full postcode. But that's what that screen does. This tablet not supported activity is the activity we get dropped to if we don't pass their checks. Oh, there's a device not supported and a tablet not supported. That's interesting. I thought I'd just been seeing tablet not supported. But anyway, we've added the, messed up there, didn't I? So we need to set the value to true because we do want to export these. As I say, you really want to add that to all the activity items, really. So we've decompiled the application, we've made our change, and now we just want to repackage it back up. But this is where I have problems. And now it's created a dist folder, and that's going to contain our new APK, but that's not the final step, because now that we've changed items within the APK, we need to re-sign it. We can sign it with our own key. So yeah, we just needed to create the key store to be able to sign it with something. So yeah, all the objects get signed, hence why when we pulled it apart and then rebuilt it, that's why we have to re-sign it. And then it should just be a case of running zip align on the application. I was doing this on an Android VM because I thought it might be some of my dependencies. But yeah, I still didn't have any joy. Maybe this will work, but I doubt it. So now we've got the new APK. Will it let us install it? So first of all, we'll have to remove the old one. And try to install this one. But I say I've had errors with this, so I reckon this is going to fail. Let's see. Yeah. Something's not right with that APK that's being generated.
Any ideas from the audience?
So there is an option, it's not showing up here, and that's when we build it. Yeah, we can use AAPT1 or AAPT2, which is how it builds files. I'm not too sure, but I would suspect that might be the cause. Yeah, no. But if we can repackage it, then yeah, we can get access to all these other parts. But I will leave that as a challenge to you guys. Hook me up on Twitter if you find out what I was doing wrong.
There was also a Discord channel, right?
Sorry?
The Discord?
Oh, I've not joined the OSS Discord.
No, we don't have a Discord. You have a Discord.
Oh, right, yeah. Yeah, I'm on Twitter. I'm on 2600 Discord, the London one. So, yeah, I should really drop a link in that after we've done the chat. But, yeah, there we go, really. I've had to drop a few things out, but hopefully that's given you some information to go work on and have a look over some other apps.
Cool.
Most definitely. Thank you.
I would
That's a
say as
lot
well,
of stuff I haven't even delved into yet, so it's awesome.
if you do get to change the activities, yeah. Hold on, this isn't going to work. Give us 2 secs. Yeah, so we can actually use ADB, and the way you do it is first say the package, which we worked out using the PS command earlier, and then by giving it the activities main name. Now, this one here, even though in the manifest wasn't exported, your first activity in the manifest is always exported, because if no activity was exported, they wouldn't be able to see any screens. So yeah, but by running this command, it will open up our app and take us to the main activity. There we go, so the app's opened, and then it's part of the main app then forwards you onto this not supported activity. But if you were to manage to export this activity, yeah, you'd be able to access it through ADB, but as I say, it's not going to be able to call it because, yeah, that activity is not exported, so that's why this isn't working. But yeah, if you can get that manifest to be exported true and put that back into the application, that's what you can run from ADB to get you into that screen. I'll just drop that in chat. But yeah, that's it for me, really.
Whoa. It has been a marathon.
It has. I know I'm going to be watching these again.
Yeah, I will upload probably tomorrow because it will take a few hours just to convert it this time. And any questions, comments, and anything?
I think people are either eating or gone to bed.
Thank you, Mike. I have found it very useful.
Oh, I'm glad, because yeah, I did have to drop some things out, but
it was good.
it's been a lot.
Trying to navigate through that kind of stuff myself would have been really complicated. Getting to see someone else struggle with it may have helped me some. Actually, quite a bit.
Definitely you see the process. Yeah, in real life, you're gonna face the same things, right? Yeah. Cool.
Yeah, when doing testing, I've been in a position before where it's 3 days later and we still haven't got the app under control. So like the pre-flight checks, we still can't man in the middle the network traffic. So yeah, sometimes you won't be able to get as far as that because of different blockers. But yeah.
Good.
Is that the case with the virtual or the virtual machines, or is that something else? I mean, I know that I mean, is there general thing that can stop you using the actual device too, or is it, because I know that's specifically unique to the virtual machines, but is there something like that for like actual devices as well that can kind of prevent the initial stages of like hacking into it?
Yeah, it's just down to the app to just do checks really to make sure yeah, everything's as it should be. Yeah, obviously it should be able to, obviously it takes effort to put into the code, but for example, we're re-signing things. You could have those signatures for all those files in the code, and it could check those individually to make sure they haven't been tampered with. Yeah, from what I've seen, there isn't any of that, but yeah, at the moment it's just repackaging the app that's sort of stopping that.
Okay, thank you.
Cool.
And we have greetings from India, from Nitesh. Okay, I'm gonna stop the recording. Thank you so much again for joining and staying the full course. And see you later.